Hello, fictional. Welcome to the What If Issei. Today we are gonna see, what if Issei got harem with Raynare and Momo? Part 2. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. Uma-san, can you accompany me a bit more? Sure. Thank you. Giving a relieved grin to the still saddened girl, Issei grabs her hand to lead her in a certain direction slowly. The girl only gives a smile with no strength behind it but follows the boy silently. After exiting the aquarium, the pair walk to Kuo Park they met in the late morning. The dark blue sky blankets the world with countless stars shining on them. After walking for a while, they reach another bench near the fountain and sit on it. The sound pouring of the waters recedes the awkward air after Yuuma's outburst. For a while, both of them didn't speak anything. The difference is that Yuuma looks down to the ground while Issei looks up to the sky. In a way, their actions represent their basic nature. One yearns for the sky while the other stares below. After a few minutes, Issei is the one who broke the silence. Uma-san. Tonight, the stars are beautiful. It's a waste to not gaze on it. Not saying the famous line. There's a big moon too, you know. Chuckling quietly, Issei didn't respond back to her. While that kind of confession is romantic, it won't bear any meaning if both sides don't have actual emotions in it. I don't think you are in a state for accepting any kind of confession. That's true. Sighing hopelessly from the absolute fact given, Yuuma could only let out a dry laugh. She, who was the first to propose, couldn't accept the positive answer from the receptor. How ridiculous is that? Perhaps noticing her thoughts, Issei didn't speak anything. Besides, with this date, he was able to confirm his lingering suspicions too. Uma-san, you didn't fall in love with me at first sight. It was not a question, but a straight statement. The certainty behind his words will repel any kind of flimsy excuse coming from her. She didn't speak anything. Perhaps, that's the loudest answer given ironically. After all, silence is another form of affirmation. Releasing a long breath, Issei bitterly smiles at her response. In the end, it's another relationship that won't flourish anymore. I guess that's to be expected. In the beginning, he was over the moon like his parents. Which straight man wouldn't be happy receiving a goodwill and honest confession from an attractive girl? Issei wasn't an exception to it. Only, in this case, the honest part was not really true from the beginning. I don't know why you spoke that lie to get close to me. But the more he hung out with her, the more time passed. Suspicions began to linger in the back of his mind. Why does a girl that's way out of his league suddenly proclaim her love to a plain teenager out of the blue without any kind of build-up? That's the start. The rest, he just filled the gap while watching her expression throughout the date. His conclusion. She was forced to. The reason and purpose. He couldn't even know about it in the slightest. Issei knew too little about her to draw any kind of specific answer. Initially, he thinks rudely that she's a two-faced bitch that takes satisfaction from deceiving and breaking a guy like him for a sense of superiority. But, her reaction doesn't really support this argument. Issei is naive, he could admit that readily. Still, one of his limited skills was perceiving people's expressions a bit better than others. With that, he learned one crucial thing. She didn't enjoy it, not even one bit. At that time, she cried because. You were guilty about it, aren't you? Another silence, but this time it was a bit heavier than usual. Yuuma's head was lowered even more. Some may see her being in a curled up position too. She didn't answer him verbally again, but Issei took it as another confirmation. I see. Aren't you mad at me? From her question voiced quietly, Issei released another long forlorn sigh. It would be a lie if I'm not. Figuratively, you played with my emotion for your goals. And wasn't that the kicker of this situation? All of this was a sham from the very start until the end. There was never any romance. Nor would it ever bloom to one. A relationship starting from a lie will never bloom successfully. So Yuuma's question was natural. In fact, she even silently wondered, how could he still be this calm knowing the truth? Noticing the unspoken question from watching her expression, Issei only chuckles. For a supposed scammer, she could be a bit silly. Perhaps that's one of her true charms. It's because of you, Uma-san. What? Snickering at her dumbfounded look, Issei slowly but gently spoke to the suffering girl more than him. At that time, that moment, your tears were undoubtedly more real than anything I remember. Just that. I could be faking it, you know. From that possibility, Issei didn't deny it. He slowly nods as if it could be highly true. Usually. I won't deny that. A skilled actor not only fools the audience, but they themselves. However. Trailing off, he looks at her sadly. You couldn't keep up the act anymore. Hearing that, a bitter chuckle comes out from her mouth inadvertently. His beepasis was perfectly accurate. For someone who seems normal, his eyes were undoubtedly sharper than average. Don't you want to shout at me for being a scheming bitch? You definitely think of it if you reach that conclusion. Folding his hands, Issei nods his head slightly again. She was right, he thought that too. Again, it would be a lie if I didn't think of it at all. But that's just like kicking a hurting puppy, looking at your current state. I'm not that heartless, much less to my very first date. Even though it's all fake. Even then. Breathing out, Yuma smiles wryly at this boy answering her in a de facto tone. Issei-kun, you are an idiot. Ouch, how harsh. Still, bringing a smile on your beautiful face, I guess it's worth it being called an idiot. Shaking her head helplessly at his compliments, she could only let out another hopeless sigh at this stupid boy still trying to comfort her. What could she say to that, other than calling him an idiot when the trick is all out in the open? Such a fool. And yet, she was also one too, who willingly played this charade even knowing how it would all end. I'm sorry, Issei-kun. I have my reason for doing so, but it's just a meaningless excuse after reaching this point. So I won't say it. Instead, this is the finale. Saying so, she stood up from the bench. Then, she slowly steps up standing in front of Issei looking up at her confusedly. Yuma-san. This is goodbye. What do you I see. He couldn't comprehend the sudden word of separation, but he could understand that her goals had been achieved from this date. It bothered him a bit that he was given no explanation, but some things are better left unsaid. With a tender smile, Issei says his piece to this trial girlfriend. Goodbye, Yuma-san. It was only 2 days, but I was happy to have you as my partner. Until the end, he was stupidly foolish and overly sweet for a person like her. With a sad smile, Yuma parts ways with this innocent boy who's involved with old relics. If she talked more with this person, it would greatly shake her resolve. She already risked so much doing this blatantly in front of her enemies. But I guess it's worth it. His smile offset any heavy cost for her. Goodbye, Haidu Issei-kun. Later, when you forget me, find a better girl alright. You deserve that much. I didn't think I could forget a lady like you, though. How sweet, but you will forget me. What? Before he could continue, Yuma raised her right hand and touched Issei's forehead slowly. Then, her hand glowed. Subsequently, Issei's consciousness began to blur. He couldn't muster strength in his body at all either. You. Mason. Facing him with a tearful smile, Yuma says her supposed last final piece. In exchange, I'll remember you fondly. The date was really fun. I'm glad. I met you. Before she continued her last word, a glitch happened to her. Consequently, her unfinished spell was cancelled before it was completed. Therefore, Issei won't forget the next moment anymore. Nor will he enjoy it. Ugh, what the he. The RR. Retracting the stretched hand from the shock, a symbol glowed from Yuma's forehead. Except, this one is much more complicated and ominous than the one used on Issei. Keying. For it will force her. Yuma-san snap ouch. The hell. Standing up from the bench, the confused, worried boy tried to touch Yuma, but his hand got repelled by the dark lightning surrounding her. If he focused on his hand a bit more, it released a bit of smoke due to extreme heat from it. But he couldn't split his attention to his injured hand. All he could see was a hurting Yuma kneeling on the ground holding her head, shocked by some kind of weird symbol on her forehead. Just, what the hell is actually going on? One moment, Yuma wanted to say farewell, then how could the next moment change this abruptly? Moreover, he couldn't even get near to her physically either. His burned hand is the biggest proof of what will happen to him if he does so. All he could do was anxiously wait for the situation to get better. For a few seconds, her scream covered the area. Then, a bright light filled his view completely. What happened? Blinking his eyes repeatedly, Issei looks around at his surroundings after recovering his eye vision. He was still in the same park. Contrary to his expectation, there was absolutely no destruction from the ferocious impact of the lightning itself. Only one thing changed. Rather, she transformed. With a huge amount of disbelief, Haidu Issei couldn't even articulate proper words to describe the changes that happened in front of him. Amano Yuma, the girl who screamed in pain while kneeling down, was no more. Instead, a woman replaced her. Yes, not a girl, but a full-blown mature lady if Yuma was 5 to 10 years older than her previous appearance. If Yuma was pretty and youth personified with a touch of innocence, this woman in front of him was the exact opposite of it. Her face was sharp from the lack of baby fat. Her long jet black hair stretches more to her lower ankle. Her body is in perfect hourglass shape with absolutely no excess fat. Her clothes, which were supposed to be a white one-piece dress, replaced with a combination of dress and armor design of ancient times. While it only leaves a minimal amount of skin exposure from head to toe, it complements the image of the woman as a battle Valkyrie. All in all, she looks like a deadly woman exuding dangerous allure with no less attractiveness to it. Some people may even prefer her current looks more depending on preference. And then, her biggest change. Black wings. On her back, there are 3 pairs of black-colored feather wings stretching organizedly. Rather than a human, the current her is more like Adam. Fallen angel. Just like the ones depicted in his constant dream haunting his nights. Only, it just got very real and materialized in front of him. Which? As if hearing him, the adult Yuma slowly raised her lowered head. The symbol was there but not glowing anymore. However, that's not the only thing worrying him. No, the biggest worry was Yuma-san. Her beautiful amethyst eyes are dull and unfocused. Yuma-san. He calls her out one more time, but there's still no response. It makes him feel eerie from the utter silence combining the oppressive aura rolling out from her. Finally, there was a reaction from the adult Yuma. 1 second, she was standing blankly in front of him. The next moment. Whish. She immediately appears in front of him in less than a centimeter. Back. For an instant, Issei couldn't understand anything. This Yuma only stared at him flatly, as if he was just a rock pebble in sideway. Immediately, in his ears, a stabbing sound was heard near him. Not really near him but. Previously, he was bathed with bright light. This time though. Splash. Everything was filled with crimson. Amano Yuma doesn't understand the situation at all. From what she remembered, she decided to seal Issei's memories in her power so he wouldn't be a target to people like them anymore. He might resent her for stealing a possible future from him, but she will bear that cross for the rest of her life. Better that than to be exploited tirelessly by those shitty bats. Resolving that, she touched his forehead to let the spell enter his body, sealing the memory and power at the same time. And then what happened? Groaning from the lack of memories, she touched her forehead in confusion while closing her eyes with furrowed brows. To her surprise, instead of smooth skin, she could feel a faint mark on it. Frowning, she traced its mark carefully with her fingertips. The more she traced it though, the more horrified and pale she became. A fucking slave command mark. Righteous anger burned through for this unforgivable transgression. A terrifying growl unconsciously came out from her stretched mouth. Just as she tries to think of the possible fucker who did this to her. Hold on a sec. This is the left of it. After the command input is gone, it leaves traces of it. So what did I just? Looking at her attire and to her back, she was surprised by her true form showing up because of it. Grimacing from the possible trouble upcoming after being seen, she looks more downward. There was a pool of crimson liquid surrounding the floor. Blood? From who though? Checking her body quickly, it looked like she was uninjured. If not her, then there's only Issei. Phasing more up from the pool of blood, just how much is it? Drip. The teenager who has a huge hole eyes in the middle of the floor. Widening her eyes in disbelief, she immediately came to his side and kneeled beside him. Immediately, she touched his injured stomach with her hand, a glowing light came out from her palm. After she did so, the injured boy regained his faint consciousness and restored his vision, limited as it was. In his blurred view, Yuma was frantically pressing his stomach with her glowing hand like before, tears in her eyes. Come on. Come on. Come on. Don't die on me. You hear me, Issei. You. Shut up. Just. Don't talk and conserve your energy. This kind of wound, a little bit a little bit more. She's already pouring all of her mastery in healing and magic power to close the hole in his stomach. So why is he not? No. The terrible realization started in her brain while still healing him to the fullest of her ability. She desperately hoped it was just her stupid paranoia and nothing more. Which is not. Really is often disappointing. This is no different than usual. Damn it. Fucking damn it. Why is it not healing? Even initial twilight healing wouldn't be able to compare. So why? Ma-san. Gritting her teeth until she felt her moles drilled, she poured more of her magic power to offset the terrifying loss of blood coming from him. Listen to me, Issei. You must not fall asleep. You hear me? You absolutely can't fucking lose consciousness no matter what. Looking at her panicking more than him who is the one dying, Issei smiles weakly at the mature girl. She stabbed him decisively and now trying to cure him relentlessly. The polarity of her action was staggering. He couldn't understand anything. One moment he was fine, then he was lying with his blood soaking every pore of his body with a gigantic hole in his stomach. But he understood one thing. Heal, damn it. He is going to die. There is no changing that. Mom, Dad. What would they think if their only son died before them? He couldn't imagine the grief it would bring to his parents. You are going to live, Issei. There's still the rest of your long life. But Tsutomu Hama Hanakai-san. They're friends. Would they be sad leaving them early? Maybe. Imagining them participating in his funeral, he couldn't bear to imagine their tear-filled faces. Please live, don't do this to me. But there's nothing he could do. From the complexion of Yuma getting more and more despairing, there's no changing the end of it. She could only slow down the process. Yuma-san. Amano Yuma. The girl who was the first to confess to him. The one who gave him his first date experience. The first girlfriend of his. The first who makes his world brighter in his monotone high school days. She was truly the first of many things to him. He was supposed to feel resentful of his killer. The one who robbed of his future without warning. The one who soiled his many firsts with this kind of ending. But. Helpless. All of it dissipates looking at her current state. She's still trying to heal judging from her glowing hand. However, her eyes which are filled with despair reflect her current thoughts. Fuck. Why is this happening? That signal. Suddenly, as if she reached a terrible epiphany, she widened her eyes to the extreme, gazing through Issei's pants. Specifically, the pockets where he stored the scam magical circle flyer. Then, she glared hatefully at the bushes where the stalker watching this entire scene without lifting a finger. To him at that time, it truly was just a nonsensical magic mumbo-jumbo he didn't believe in. If he was still clear-headed and sane though, he'd have doubts after experiencing all of the strange things he experienced just now. However, he couldn't properly think about it, nor about why Yuma looked like she wanted to kill her most hated enemy in the entire world. Sadly, he couldn't reach the answer as his time was ticking closer. Even though Yuma is still pressing her glowing hand to him, his consciousness is getting blurry and fainter. Cold. Not hurt but cold. Issei feeling cold means only one thing in this situation. Yuma, who has witnessed lots of corpses and near-living bodes, grimaced sadly from hearing his muttering. I couldn't save him. It was piercing but very rational judgment. She doesn't understand the situation during her panic moments. However, she doesn't earn her high spot in the organization by dilly-dallying like flailing rookies. Considering that fucking bat's magic signature and the slave command just now, she reaches one terrible conclusion. She was played. On what, she couldn't know. She doesn't have the capacity for leisure thinking in this situation either. Meeting the ruler of this territory after making this much of a mess is just asking for disaster. The signal makes her next decision swifter and more decisive than ever, regardless of her emotion disagreeing with it. There's truly nothing she could do anymore. Either to herself or to the dying boy beside her. I'm sorry, Issei. One holding his whole stomach while her other gently rubs his bloody cheek with tender movement. The norm of fallen angels was to spit for dirtying their bodies with lowly human blood, but she's not in that category. She's not morally bankrupt to the point of spitting her own mistake, unwilling or not. Her eyes, which are touched with darker colors but still beautiful in her true forms, let out tears of regret and grief for involving him in this world. There's no turning back anymore. Issei couldn't understand her apologies. He's too far gone in mental mind to properly bepize her words or her confusing actions. Still, he realizes one thing. The most crucial fact to this confusing situation. She's innocent. Slowly, he raised his bloodied right hand up. It was a small miracle even able to move his body, but he took what he could get in his diminishing life. Yuma twitched a bit by the sticky sensation suddenly on her cheek, but she didn't push it away. She's too much in shock looking at his last face as a proper human. He was still smiling. At her. Her, who murdered him. Why? Why are you still looking at me like that? Noticing the unspoken question from her disbelieved tone, Issei released a short, erratic, choked breath. Then, he mustered all of his minuscule strength to put a final curtain on the situation. No, to their date. Note fault you. It was slow and whisper level, but Yuma clearly heard it. Her eyelid began to open wide, comprehending it. Her tears, which had just stopped a moment ago, began to pour out again. How? How could he still? It was forgiveness and closure. Not to himself only, but to the perpetrator too. Witnessing her face smeared with his blood and own tears, Issei stretched his smile wider. To him, it was one of the most beautiful images in his entire lifetime. His eyes opened to the fullest he could to burn this final scene before going to the other side. Ah. Tefan. You really are an idiot, Issei. You worth it. Grabbing his hand that's holding her cheek soft but strongly, Yuma releases a choked sobbing laughter, expressing her entire incredulity toward this boy. Only he could still flirt with his killer genuinely. Not only that, each of his words is filled with care and understanding for her. That it's not her fault. That he will forgive her. That's just. Biting her lip until blood poured out, she lowered his face, colliding with his chest gently to not hurt him more than ever. She couldn't know what kind of terrible expression she was currently making, but it was definitely not nice for him to watch it in his final moment as a mortal. That's why. She raised her head, facing him properly by mustering her biggest smile. Raynare. That's my real name. Blinking once, Issei looks at her in sluggish surprise. Then, understanding it, Issei smiled gently at her. Likeu. Ha. Of course. I'm an angel, you know. Well, already fallen though. On confirming her real nature, a breath of awe released from his mouth. It was surreal, the beings from the myth he dreamt of for months materialized in this way. Guardian. On the mention of that word whispered by him, a jolt ran through her entire body. Even though she had fallen a millennium years ago, she couldn't mistake that ever. Guardian angel. In the golden age of heaven, each of them was assigned to the humans born into the world. Not common in the present, but that role still exists. However, fallen angel is obviously out of that. And yet, this boy mentioned that in front of him. The meaning behind it was plainly evident, ridiculous as it sounded. You really think I am? Even after. The words were not mentioned, but Issei still perceived it, fatally injured or not. In response, he only gives a small, weathered nod with the same plastered bloody grin. Meeting you was my greatest and worst luck ever. Releasing a long sigh of resignation, Yuma smiles bitterly. Indeed, meeting with him was truly the luckiest and unluckiest moment in her entire life. Not only did she murder this kind of person unwillingly, but he also reminded her of the sacred role assigned by every angel given by their Holy Father. She knows. He never meant to insult him. It's just a kind symbolic gesture from his ignorant state. No one saying no, not even the crazies would even say be their guardian angel right to their face, unless to mock them to the highest degree. In any other scenario, she'll go mad in rage even from someone like him. Touching the most sore spot of fallen angel is just asking for a gruesome death sentence. But in this situation. Precisely because it's him. Yeah, I'm your guardian angel. No one else but yours. Consider it a privilege, alright. Not just anybody could take me as their own glorified bodyguard, you know. She'll take it as the biggest badge of honor. Finally, seeing her genuine smile, Issei released a long breath of relief. Although he still has lots of worries and regrets, he can't resolve them in this state anymore. He could only take comfort in the girl lady in front of him, wouldn't take the situation as heavily as previously anymore. Such relief is only for a moment. I can't see her. Just now, he could still view her silhouette, vague as it may be. Now, most of his organ is not in a critical state anymore, but stopped working. In a few minutes less. He'll die. Recognizing his dulling eyes, Raynard the fallen angel slowly closed his eyes. Both of them want to have a more proper closure, but the world won't allow that. The reality will never give her that chance. But just one more. Even if it's one-sided. Just let me do this for the final touch. She closed her eyes and slowly drew near to his peaceful blood-smeared face. The distance of hers with him slowly closed. Chew. The sound of lips contacting with one another resonates softly. His first kiss. If he could savor this, he'd comment on it as a sign of love, cheesy as it sounds. Raynard could imagine it easily on her mind, him smiling droopily. In a way, she wanted to finalize the date with this stupidly kind boy in a good manner too. Only. A shame. They couldn't enjoy it anymore. Raising her head from his face, Raynard released another regretful sigh. Then, she narrowed her eyes toward the direction where the damned stalker watching them from. His or her presence was already gone a few minutes ago. For what, Raynard couldn't be dastardly clearer about it. In a few seconds, the master will come to reap the benefit easily without doing any of the work. Raynard has never felt so much anger and disgust with herself, helping her nemesis in this way. Gnashing her teeth, she looked downward at the comatose state of the boy sadly. She wanted to end him once and for all. Issei could be called so. Because of his identity as human and the right to freely choose the way of his life. If he loses both of them. Sorry Issei. I'm probably the worst guardian angel you could find. Releasing another breath she couldn't even count, Raynard could only wryly smile at her wishy-washy attitude. Either in a relationship or in her career, she couldn't put a good end to it. She couldn't finish the job. Spreading her 6 wings widely, Raynard mentally changed gears to prepare for the upcoming mess. The meeting between Issei the human and Yuma has completely finished. Regrouping with her colleagues to decide their next moves is her priority now. As for both of them. If there's a next life. See you later Issei. They will meet with both of their masks and secrets exposed fully. Whoosh. Flying in the direction of her temporary bases, Raynard melancholically thought to herself. I hope we can meet in a better situation than now. What a wishful thinking. Perhaps she was influenced by him too, unbelievable as it sounds. Strangulish doesn't hate it. Because she is reborn too, just like he will be. He couldn't feel anything. He couldn't touch anything. He couldn't smell anything. He couldn't move either. The justice. He doesn't know how long has passed already. After seeing Yuma, no. Raynard's her real name, wasn't it? After that, he couldn't recognize anything. All he could feel was cold darkness covering his entire senses. But, he could vaguely see his surroundings just like seeing a broken diorama from a third point of view. In that scene, his body lay down in the pool of his own blood underneath. Then. The light of crimson appeared beside him. Oh. Looks like she really did try to kill him. Well, not that I expect anything from a dirty fallen angel. The person suddenly materialized after the light dissipated. He couldn't see the person's features clearly, but it was clearly a young woman's voice. The rest, he couldn't figure out much, except her having long red hair. Poor boy. It must have been hurt, mutilated you mercilessly like this. Is she speaking to him? Not only that, she must have been related to this in a certain kind of form, judging from her tone. On what kind, he couldn't know. Everything that happened today is entirely new and too rapid to him. But, just like the unusual state of Raynare who killed him. Don't worry. I'll help you with your wish. After all, that's why I'm called by you. He sensed a bad omen coming from this woman. Rejoice, Issei. You will be rebirthed as my servant. With that, his consciousness completely sinks into the abyss. The next time he wakes up, he will not be a human anymore. His right to be called that has been eternally closed. Tomorrow, he'll not be a mediocre man. But as a special being of the other side. He doesn't remember much about what the woman did to her. However, strangely he remembered one thing clearly. Do he wonder why I wake up suddenly? It looks like my current partner is in a unique situation. Before everything was mute, a voice radiated around him. He never heard that kind of deep rumble voice spoken to him in his life. But, he feels he knew the person intimately as if he knew his existence for a long time. We truly are a being of attracting trouble, aren't we? Yes, just like that dream. Looks like you are not fully lucid. That's fine. We have plenty of time in the future. Greetings should be done properly. When the Crimson Dragon spoke to him. But, I guess parting words won't hurt. Their voice was exactly the same. Before he completely passed out, its final words rang to him more clearly than ever. It was. Welcome to your new world, Issei. The stage has been set. All of the pieces have finally been gathered. This moment has finally come. The time of peace and stagnancy has ended. The world will greet a time of chaos and conflict. Welcome Issei. Your wish to be special has been granted. As for the price. Everything you have. Author's note. And done. Whew. Damn, that's 5k words for this chapter only. I must be high writing this. How was it everyone? Like it? Hate it? Either way, please leave a comment or review for your opinion. Personally, I did my best work and poured out all my passion into this work. After watching the anime, you could realize the difference immediately. In Og, Raynare is just a low grunt with an inferiority complex trying to get close pervert general. Here though, she's a jaded soldier who was mercilessly robbed of her tiny happiness by someone. On who, I can't say yet. That'll be a spoiler. Just know this all leads to one big build-up in the peace conference. Also, about Ria's Gremory. Personally, I think I'm a bit biased toward her in a bad light. I know she's innocent because her character is supposed to be a legitimate princess. Moreover, I heard that the light novels depict her as more clearly and morally sound. Well, I don't know about that. I could only bepize her actions from anime, resulting in a poor view of her. Her worth of Harane's low, really. I try to make her as believable as possible, but forgive me if there's bashing. There's a limit to what could a rookie author do. The day after the date. NGGGH. As if waking up from a long terrible nightmare, Issei unconsciously groans due to discomfort running through his entire body. The last time he felt this kind of pain was from stretching his undeveloped muscles in the gym. However, he wasn't able to continue much anymore. To put it simply, he's just lazy. Well, after today, he will regret it immensely. Raising his upper body, he rubs his eyes while mentally preparing for today's class. School. Furrowing his brow, he mutters the word school as if it's foreign to him. To be more precise, he instinctively felt that was the very least of his worries. Still 5 a.m. Looking at his digital clock clearly showing the time, Issei frowns confusedly. Although not a lazy slob, he's definitely not this much of an early riser. There are still 3.5 hours before his first period starts. Hold on a second. Why did I think of school immediately? Shouldn't I? Ugh, what the? Rubbing his temple in discomfort, he receives a sudden but painful flashback of yesterday's event. The day when he went on a date with you. No. The moment he tried to remember the girl's name, he couldn't make a sense of it, as if a fog was mentally blocking him. Moreover, it feels wrong as if it's the wrong clothes to wear for the said person. But why he couldn't even remember the rest of its day's events either. What really happened yesterday? Then, suddenly. Looks like there's slight disarray with your memories. Can't say I didn't expect it though. A deep rumbling voice resonates through the room. Who's there? After a slight jolt, Issei turned his head left and right to find the source of that deep voice with an alarmed expression. However, no matter how much he looks around, only his familiar room's walls surround him with no sign of the said speaker. Tuckle, you are looking at the wrong place. look on your left hand. Trembling from this unknown voice speaking without warning, he feels reluctant to follow his direction. However, no matter how much he looks around, there's no sign or shadow of the spoken figure. I guess there's no choice. He really hopes it's not some ghost haunting him. Timidly raising his upper left wrist from below the bed's blanket, Issei prepared for the worst. He moved his left hand slowly, as if it could stir even without his mental command. There, on the back palm of his hand. I guess this is the first time we talk to each other like this directly. The green circular glow blinks periodically in the same rhythm as the spoken voice. Cold sweat running down his cheek, "Hi do Issei," asks the voice very gently. What are you?" Trembling in fear with events happening far beyond his understanding, Issei tried his best to communicate with the voice as normal as he could. Sadly, his held tremors in it, expressing his inner terror. Hearing that, the voice cackles at him, not answering immediately. Although, if Issei was not imagining it, there is a certain sense of melancholy in it. As if it had been asked that countless times already. "You should know what I am. After all, you dreamt about me a few days ago, no?" Blinking rapidly, Issei couldn't digest its words properly. Then, after closing while thinking hard about it, his eyelid shoots up while staring at the glowing circle on his hand. He recognizes this voice. There's one. Didn't he hear it once during the time he napped in the math class? He thought it was just his mind playing with him for watching too much anime. But as it said, its voice truly overlapped with the dragon before the dream ended. Which means. Are you saying you are? Correct. Well then, let me introduce myself. It's inconvenient for both of us if you don't know my name. Nice to meet you, Haidu Issei. My name is Drake Gotch. People called me Sekiruite, the Red Dragon of Domination. Dragon. From ancient times, people have always been afraid, in awe, hated, or admired their prowess. Each of them is a being that could terrorize everyone in the vicinity just by hearing its existence. In today's age, they were the most commonly used hardest trials for the heroes in the media to overcome adversity, winning recognition from the masses. And now, such a being exists on his body, specifically on his left hand. If Issei was not in a panic, he would joke all those Unabu lines about some feared power sealed in their hand, has some truth in it. Which, for him really does. If all those middle grader syndrome know this, they're going to cry tears of blood and extreme jealousy. You got to be shitting me. The curse spat out in his mouth, but he doesn't have the mental capacity to care about being polite. All of his attention is focused on his hand cautiously as if it could explode at any time. Amused by his reaction, Drake couldn't help but ask him in a jolly tone while laughing. Ha 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 ha. Rather than fear or joy, you curse at me. My. You're one unique host, aren't you? Anyone would say the same if they were in my shoes. Really, a dragon? A freaking boss monster that makes one give up even before trying to face them is now on his body. What kind of bullshit is that? No, more than that. It was you. He finally remembered what happened yesterday. Specifically, what occurred to him. Before I lost consciousness, you spoke to me. Something about welcome. What did Drake mean by that? No, not only that. It was all real, wasn't it? It was a question, but Issei himself only asked it for confirmation. After talking with the glowing hand, he could sort out his memories into proper state. Some small part of him meekly hoped it was just a bad dream, but. Yes. The dragon's short answer crushed all of it instantly. Hearing the simple but the tone of finality used behind its words, Issei bit his lip strongly. His right hand gripped the bedsheet strongly, as if it could rein him from this shaking nausea sensation. He wanted to reject it by screaming from the top of his lungs, but he restrained that impulse forcefully. He needs to accept it. No, he must. All of that blood poured out from his body, the sensation of falling into the darkness, Raynard stabbing him and crying for his death, and this dragon in his left arm. From this moment, all of this will be the norm for him. He could remember all of it vividly as if it just happened to him a few minutes ago. If not, he'll be heading to his sink, puking out all of the content he ate due to all this craziness. This is his new reality. Taking a deep breath, Issei released it erratically at first. Repeated a few times, he was able to calm his emotions and stabilize his breathing. Opening his eyes, he looked at his left hand, the being who could make sense of all this situation with a serious gaze. Why am I still alive? At that time, you Raynard stabbed me. I could still feel the sensation too. Stopping, Issei raised his white shirt to check his stomach anxiously. To his surprise, there were no signs of the scar at all. It looks unblemished as ever. I'm really healed, huh? It's nothing that impressive. With the proper magic and the right way to use it, anyone could cure that kind of wound easily. As for who? Speechless by the first half of his sentence, Issei blanked out for a moment with a gaping mouth. If magic could cure tens of centimeter diameter stabbing wounds just like a paper cut, then there's little to it couldn't do. Snapping out of the stupor, he paid attention to Drake's second half comment. Thinking about the mysteries of magic won't do him any good currently. Speculating about his mysterious savior would though. Do. Asking expectantly, Issei asked the dragon for any kind of information that could help this madness. Sadly, it would only cause him another disappointment again. He was able to gain consciousness like this after that. So even if you asked me, I couldn't give you the right one. Of course, it's not going to be that easy. Sighing helplessly, Issei rubs his temple to reduce his migraine. While he is grateful for the person preventing his death, it won't help him much if said savior doesn't give him any kind of guide or direction. Drake-san couldn't help him either since he had just woken up fully after his near death, not before. Let's think about this differently. Upping his chin, he hums in thought while closing his eyes. Thinking about the rescuer is a no-go. His memory returned, but the ending of it was too blurry for him to reminisce. So, the most pressed question he should ask is. What exactly is Raynare-san? The person who killed him. No, that's not right. Narrowing his eyes thoughtfully, Issei rejects that notion. While he won't deny he's holding a faint illusion that the fallen angel is unrelated to all of this, that's just denial. Raynare-san is definitely involved deeply in this case. No, what makes him think so otherwise is another thing. The glowing mark on her forehead. That's one important clue. Drake-san. What is it? What do you know about fallen angel? Fallen angel, huh? Humming, Drake rumbles his corporal throat in thought about his host's inquiry. Even he himself is interested in Issei's situation too. He won't mind helping while guiding him about the know-how of the supernatural. Before I explain about the supernatural, I need to warn you. I may live a long time, but that doesn't mean I know everything. Some things and meanings could change with the passage of time. Nodding in understanding, Issei grasped the meaning behind his words. That's fine. I'll take what I can get right now. Besides, you're the veteran in this partnership, yes. It's natural to rely on you. Drake-san. Tilting his head, Issei asked one more time for the dragon to get silent. Sorry. Just thinking about something. Back to your question. For fallen angel, they are the deserter of the holy army of heaven. I'm sure you know about it a little too. Will ye? I couldn't understand the supernatural, but at least the basic concept of it from stories in games or anime. I just want to ask if there are any differences. Not much. From what I know, an angel could fall because they could not suppress their base desire. That's the start of the existence of fallen angel. Base desire. It can be such as lust, wrath, gluttony, and such. If he just categorized it roughly, fallen angels are beings who had lost their way from the proper path. Drake-san also commented that most angels he had met fall from arrogance, so they always have a big ego when confronting other races. Tapping his chin, Issei hummed in thought from the vague knowledge given. Although it gives him a start, it doesn't match the events that happened yesterday. Specifically, what Raynare did to him. That doesn't really connect to her. What do you mean? Taking a deep breath, Issei explained succinctly about the event yesterday. He doesn't really want to explore it since it just gives him a flashback of his gruesome near-death state with all of its painful sensations. However, he gritted his teeth, bearing it. Running away from the situation will just make it worse. Peering from his host's side, Drake also frowns thoughtfully in confusion. You're right, it doesn't match. Killing you is one thing. Trying to erase your memories, sealing me, and even trying to cure after injuring you by herself. Her actions are full of bipolarity. Right? She even cried, you know. If fallen angels are what you describe, arrogant ass, then my body will be treated like trash. That's true. Drake nods his head understandingly. At first, the dragon thought that this fallen angel was sent to this town for killing him. Some of his previous hosts experienced a similar experience. However, hearing from Issei's side, it looks like there's something unusual happening in this entire situation. To put it simply, there's bigger shit brewing in this town. On what, he hasn't the slightest clue of it. Setting that aside though, Drake also chuckles in his mind hearing this villain's emotions. Looks like my partner is quite a charmer. Historically, his hosts all had numerous romantic encounters, whether with females, males, or both. Powers are one of the biggest factors for attraction in this world. Fallen angels is not an exception to this fact. Most of his partners didn't have trouble finding mates in their lives. Although, this current host is quite different as he could make one of those bloated egghead races favor him with just pure sincerity. That is truly something to be proud of. Nobody, not even his strongest users, could be likened to fallen angels that much, just with your own personality as standard. Not only that, but the comment about Issei relying on him openly. Out of all the 100 hosts he had, only he entrusted his life decisions to the dragon on important decision making. To the top of the cherry, Issei's polite but respectful attitude toward the sudden partnership is definitely a big plus point for him too. If all of these got combined after unlocking all of his potential as Sekiryu. Tuckle looks like there's something fun I could look forward to. Cautious, respectful, and considerate. All of these are positive qualities unrelated to power but in character. In terms of this category, Issei wins in a landslide compared to most of his previous problematic hosts. He could understand a bit why that fallen angel acted that way. This is their first conversation, but Drake gets a good feeling from this current host even in this short time. After all, instead of a tool, he is treated as an individual with his feelings considered. Well, that is a later story. Well, he could use this as teasing material. Drake set his mind back to the main topic. This is not the time for it. It looks like Issei also thought about a possible hypothesis for her to act like that. Was she controlled? I don't know much about magic, but she was suddenly in pain after a glowing mark appeared in her head. It's possible. Magic is very versatile depending on mastery and imagination. Her peculiar actions could be explained too. Which means. Grimacing from the darker conclusion, Issei voiced out his thought grimly. Well, he's glad Raynare-san doesn't want to kill him voluntarily, that's not the biggest issue. Somebody wants to kill me for sure. Either from her organization or forced by someone else even without her noticing it. That's highly probable. Considering the number of wings too, that someone is also in a very high position or prowess. Blinking rapidly, Issei looked at his left hand for that comment. How does the number of wings relate to the possible identity of the manipulator? Realizing his confusion, Drake continues his explanation easily. After all, it's just 1 + 1 concept. Fallen angels, just like their counterparts, the angels are ranked by the number of wings in terms of their personal ability or capacity. The more pairs they have, the more powerful and higher authority they have in their belt. The highest angel or fallen ones recorded is 6 pairs, ranked as Seraph. From that, we know that Raynare is in a considerably high position in her organization. Only for killing me? I'm just a normal human, you know. Folding his hands, Issei shook his head bewilderedly at the overblown action of the personnel chosen for this mission. Regardless of how strong Drake-san is, he is truly just a standard high school student with no special background relating to magic or his ancestors. Drake even tilted his head mentally for this peculiar action. Sending her after his host awakening him is understandable. His infamy has spread through the world for more than a millennium years, juvenile user or not. There's nothing wrong with being cautious by sending a 6-winged agent with an established record. But before. How could they sense his existence when he's still in deep sleep? His dream contact with Issei is just a sign, but not big enough to sense him accurately. Maybe it's related to the identity of the one who saved you? They are known for being hostile toward the devils and angels unanimously. There's even devils too. Angels and their counterparts are bad enough, but the literal personification of an evil race is worse. It's understandable for him to be worried. Imagining beings like Lucifer or Satan, Issei trembles in fear imagining the terror of their possible actions. Calm down. Well, I won't say the devil's powerhouse or legend like Lucifer won't exist, those kinds of beings are truly 1 in a million cases. In your current state, worrying about your current life is a higher priority than thinking about them. So I thank God. Issei. Breathing a sigh of relief, Issei thanked God, but the moment he did so, an unimaginable pain ran through his head. It was almost like someone pounded on his brain constantly for the blasphemous action he just did. Issei, focus on my voice only. Don't think about unnecessary things and just listen to me. Confused, but obediently following the command, Issei did as he was told. Well, the pain is still there, it's slowly receding. Only, the shock and frustration boil in his mind. Experiencing this kind of unknown pain suddenly is spooky, to say the least. Needless to say, Issei is scared, hugely freaked out. What the hell, what the fuck was that? Calm down, partner. Panicking won't help you. You are right. You are absolutely right, Drake-san. Taking a few deep breaths, the high schooler tries to calm down his rising emotions. It's getting harder and harder, but the dragon's guidance helps him immensely in this disastrous and confusing situation. His cursing words constantly pour out unfilteredly compared to his usual state. It is a sign of his unstable state of emotions. Thanks to his unexpected but gratefully needed partner though, he was able to stay relatively calm. It was truly a silver lining for him. If I'm doing this alone. Issei scowls heavily on that possible scenario. The panic attack is just the beginning. He'll go crazy from paranoia, sorting all of these unbelievable facts thrown at him without precaution. It is just a disaster in the making. Initially, he'd be kind of grateful to his rescuer. Now, people wouldn't blame him if he held a less than positive image of his supposed savior for being irresponsible. Saving someone won't end in just curing his wounds. They have to be responsible for the after effects of the actions too. His being thrown to his own room without any sort of explanation is worrisome to say the least. Sensing him calm down, Drake continues, but with a softer tone than normal. He didn't want Issei to be triggered unnecessarily with careless comments. Besides, it is a crucial point for both of them. With that reaction, his uncertain guess has become definite. Whether is it good or not, it depends on the boy entirely. Issei, prepare yourself mentally. What I'm going to say is going to be a huge shock for you. This is truly the first case of my long life for the host to be involved in this kind of situation. His body tensed involuntarily, cold sweat running down his cheeks from anxiety and fear. If Drake-san said so without a preamble, then it truly is a pressing matter. Gulping down his saliva, the previously normal boy asked this dragon's partner with a trembling tone. Drake-san. What am I? He thought nothing surprised him anymore. Angels, devils, and even dragons as his spiritual partner existed in real life. What could top that? His current existence is. Vaguely, he could sense his body was not the same as usual. He shrugs it off because of yesterday's events and the possible ramifications due to the dragon as his partner. But now no, after his pain just mentioning that one single word. He hoped it was not true. He treasured his humanity as same as anybody else. However, reality was always cruel to everyone equally. For his biggest fear has just been realized. Issei. Yesterday, it was a devil who helped you. I don't know the who, how, or why, but they definitely did something to cure your wounds. Your reactions just proved that. You got reincarnated by your savior. As for what you are. He's not just stopped being normal because of why Drake Gotch becoming his partner. After all. You're a devil. He's not a human anymore. Is us. Continuing, hi to Issei, the new and current partner of Drake, absent-mindedly mutters his words. A depressed expression is clearly expressed on his crestfallen face. Humans are their perfect supply to be used for their goals. In the mental mindscape, Drake unconsciously nods to his partner with a sad smile. No matter how much the world changes, the powerful always exploit the weak. This one ironclad rule is enforced in every kind of society, supernatural or not. The difference is just how will the weak be ruled by the strong. Yes. The reason you were killed, the reason you are reincarnated into the devil. It varies depending on whose faction side, but it happens. Drake stops his sentence middle way for Issei to continue it himself. Understanding the dragon's meaning, Haidu Issei closed his eyes powerlessly. The people with special powers like me, as they could be threats or allies, depending on which flag humans will join. Finishing it, the currently turned devil released a long breath filled with resignation. A bitter laugh escaped from his mouth hopelessly. With that background info, he could see the wider picture now, ugly as it is. To put it bluntly. I'm just a new toy for them. He's an innocent bystander who got involved in this bloody war. At least, Issei saw it like that. Isn't it natural to think so? Although he didn't know what kind of duties or sins humanity had done toward them, there's no worth mentioning as it was completely unrelated to who former modern human like him. It has been thousands of years already. To him, that's just crazy talk forcing their ideologies without thinking about people's opinions. However, all three of them don't see it like that. The fallen see him as a threat to eliminate. The angel's side didn't show up so he couldn't say much. But for the devils, it couldn't be clearer than ever. His newly changed species is an irreplaceable fact for it. I'm a militia for the devils. A powerless chuckle leaves out of his mouth. Leaving aside the ridiculousness of the situation, he, Haidu Issei, has irrefutably become a devil. The process doesn't matter. What matters is the result. He didn't know what his new neighbor thought when reincarnating him. Even if the person did it with goodwill, it won't change much either way. By gaining this new life, he becomes a special person. However, my peaceful life has completely ended, isn't it? He has to pay the price, enormously. I'm sorry, Issei. He was thrust to a battlefield with no prior knowledge, no proper weapons, no visible reward, and no clear ending for it. Instead, all he could see were abhorrent devils who exploited him, while his fronts were filled with angels, black and white respectively, pointing their swords at him with intent to kill. The dreams he had seen for half a year became his new reality. Don't be. It's not your fault, Drake-san. Hell, you're also a victim in this case. Both of us were forced into this fucked up situation. The reincarnated devil spat out a curse as if it could release his heavy emotions, even for a little bit. The crimson dragon chuckled bitterly as if he could understand him. After all, it's not once or twice that his powers were used in a reckless manner by his previous users disregarding his opinion, the true owner of it. Yes, he could deeply sympathize and empathize with Issei. However, he'll be a hypocrite by speaking any kind of consolation words. Because he was one of the biggest reasons for this disaster state of affairs. I guess this is where karma catches up to me. Dragons, in basic nature, are not good ones by any means. For him was more terrible. His entire life was filled with blood and corpses from many species. Some of them were even murdered only because of his whim. His arrogance, which was his hubris, caught up, causing him to be sealed and used by countless mortals eternally. And now, one human was robbed of almost everything because of his actions. Moreover, his sealed and weakened state makes him stand on the same pedestal. That's why he could understand Issei's wronged emotion as if it was himself. If Drake couldn't feel guilt, then dragons are truly heartless. What are we going to do now? Not I, we. It would be a lie if Drake was not gratified for Issei viewing him as a proper individual, spiritual state or not. But at the same time, the dragon is also aggrieved for this kind of person has to be involved in this shitty war. Issei most probably said that unconsciously without deep meaning. He's apprehensive about the upcoming dangerous times coming to him. That question was asked to him for any possible guidance. Albion, we really deserve to be sealed. Remembering his ill-fated rival, Drake released a sad sigh. What good is enormous power if it's just used for more chaos and destruction endlessly? Drake lowered his head shamefully. He grinds his teeth for not being able to answer that properly. If Issei was a warrior or someone who was involved in the start, Drake wouldn't feel this guilty. But, he was just a civilian forced by that bastard god cramming him and his power into this boy. However, he won't run or hide from the problem. If he does, the name Security is just plain decoration and nothing more. Resolving his mind, Drake raised his head with clear eyes. No matter how much Issei curses or blames him, he won't avoid it. That is his cross to bear. Issei, the reason I'm being sealed like this, was because you make a mess on their war. Silence. Before Drake could complete his sentence, his partner abruptly but accurately reached the core of the problem. If he could see it in the mental scape, the dragon's mouth opened wide in shock. You knew. Snickering at his stutter, Issei continued his words, with a slightly brighter tone. How long do you think I watched you in dreams, Drake-san? Even an idiot could guess the reason if you watched the same thing over and over again. Best guess, you were sealed because of a being I couldn't currently say, right? Once again, he was completely correct. Even though he was weak after fighting with the White One, Issei's words weren't wrong. The Holy Father, the leader of heaven sealed both of them, which resulted in his current state. Whoa. The Crimson Dragon is truly flabbergasted by the sharp presumption from Issei. Well, it's not that entirely surprising to deduce it even with an unstable mind just by minimal information given. Critical thinking is one of my strong points. The school teachers complimented me for being creative too. It's just putting two and two together. That's impressive. Not many could reach a proper answer just like that. Really? I think differently. Raising his left hand where the green circle glows, Issei smirks teasingly at the dragon. We humans were able to progress this much because we never stop thinking. After all, our strongest weapons are creativity and imagination. When you say it like that, I guess I'm a bit silly, trying to reveal it like it's a big secret. That's fine. You were just trying to help me, for being ignorant. More importantly, there's one thing I need to say one more time to you. Taking a deep breath, Issei looked at his left hand with a kind smile. Talking with his new partner was really therapeutic for his low mental health. Besides, although he really doesn't like comparing people, it really highlights how upright Drake-san is. For being honest and open, compared to the unknown devil who reincarnated him even without the basic etiquette for asking. Well, in a near-death situation, but the point still stands. I forgive you, Drake-san. Just now, you blamed yourself for involving me. Well, consider it finished and done. Once again, this boy surprised him immensely with his seemingly nonchalant words. Only he could make him speechless many times in this short period. Just like that. A simple nod with the same smile was given as a response. Like I said, you were also a victim. There's nothing to forgive, least of all from me. Thousands of years have passed already. I don't know what cruelty or sins you have done, but isn't it enough? Continuing, a sorrowful look was directed toward this dragon. You have put enough with our humans' selfish needs. Ah. How should he describe this feeling in his heart? Stuffy, yet light. Restless yet at peace. It's the first time in his long life experienced this kind of emotion. He never expected much after being sealed by that god. Loser, no matter what excuse they say, is just a dog's bark. It's not like Drake fully accepted his imprisonment in the first place, but he made peace with it, albeit reluctantly. So he just watched his previous hosts duking out with his rival countless times just like a spectator. The content of the fight or the user's personality wasn't particularly important or interesting to him. Most, if not all of them, fight to death without considering his opinion as if he were invisible. It had already occurred countless times for centuries. It would be completely idiotic of him to be feeling competitive in every fight happening. Dude, it's not bad. That's why he was really glad to be given that words, much more from this innocent person. In a way, he unconsciously waits for it to be saved, even just a little bit from this endless hell. But Issei is Issei. Needless to say, it's abnormal for the victim to forgive the perpetrator easily like it's nothing. Why won't you blame me? I think you have the right to it. Will blaming you improve the current situation? Once again, he couldn't respond properly to the rhetorical question given. Releasing a slight sigh, Issei looked down at his left hand with a pained smile. Blaming something is easy, Drake-san. I experienced that from my personal experience intimately. Well, it could make me feel satisfaction momentarily. Lowering his head, his hair bangs shadowed his eyes that filled with endless remorse. All left would be just regret and guilt. Just like me 10 years ago. Just like that accursed time. It was definitely the lowest moment for him if you exclude today and yesterday's event. But that event, he was able to suppress his emotional side, looking at the world with solid reasoning frequently. For good or bad, Issei is a logical person now. He could think calmly and rationally in any kind of situation, with the condition if he could cope with it. Magic and ongoing Millennium Wars are entirely new concepts to swallow, but he could adapt to it. He needs time to digest it fully, however, to rationalize it as facts that had been occurred by the world this whole time. Barely. Anyway, in his perspective, it's meaningless to point fingers at the dragon, fallen angel, or even his mysterious devil savior. It's just going to be throwing mud to all sides, with no one feeling happy or as the victor. Complaining is the same. It won't do any good whining annoyingly either. What happened, happened. Nothing could change that anymore. What he could change though? To tackle the problem in front of me. To put it nicely, he's being optimistic. To put it bluntly, though, Issei is just desperate. Very much so. He's scared. He is so afraid of his life being targeted at every angle at any time. He freely admits that he's a coward who treasures his life much more than fighting for glory or whatnot. If he's going further, it's just idiotic to lay down his precious life on nonsensical things like that. Brague is left speechless hearing that. He faintly felt it before, but this man named Issei is truly different in every sense. No hosts ever think that way, much less admitting being a coward. Then, will you run away? While it was a weakling's action, Drake won't blame him. As he mentioned before, Issei is just a high schooler who doesn't even know the letter F for fighting. It left a complicated feeling for the dragon, but he won't say much. Issei has the right to decide his own life. Contrary to his expectation though, Issei shook his head resolutely. No, I'm going to fight, Drake-san. While running could give me time, that's all. It will catch up to me, sooner or later. You are scared of dying, but still going to fight. In response to his Drake's confusion, a dry laugh escaped from his mouth. He was right, his words are full of contradiction. However, he feels at ease for being able to say this kind of contradiction. Because it still proves him to be human. Most of all. My friends and parents could be targeted. I don't think everyone is kind enough to leave them alone. No, they won't. Drake scoffs at the ridiculous notion of those pretentious bastards, knowing the notion of restraint. Angels, regardless of their past, would be the so-called necessary evil when pushed to a corner. Devils and fallen angels are the same. Heck, they could be worse without even pretending to be the good guys. Issei may be vague about his potential prowess, but Drake couldn't be more clear about his power as Sekiryuite. Either as enemies or allies, his future worth is worth more than a few battalions of supernatural races. They will do everything they can to exploit him for their agenda. Issei may be ignorant. But, he's not foolish enough to think everything will go better without doing anything either. To achieve something, you have to do it yourself. This case is no different. Only, the hurdle are 1,000 times higher than normal. At the same time, the stakes placed in it are something irreplaceable to him too. Then, there's only one action he could take in this scenario. My life has completely changed. I could admit that. Issei of the mediocre is no more. I wish to run away and pass this problem to someone else. But, saying that Issei takes a deep breath while looking at the green circle in his hand resolutely. That doesn't mean I could throw everything just to preserve my pitiful life. It was a declaration uncharacteristic of him. If the past himself sees his action, he will snort derisively, commenting what kind of shounen protagonist are you impersonating? He himself knew it was not like his personality to be passionate about things like this. The world doesn't exactly work with black and white, nor in fairy tale logic. Instead, this world wasn't kind to the weak. They will use you until you are dry and bones. Worse, ashes won't be left as remains too. In other words, he doesn't want to, but he must. It's not about want or not wanting anymore. He has to. I can't do this alone, Drake-san. I will die a dog's death when the time comes. The sheer certainty of his prediction about his possible death was chilling to the dragon. It's almost scary that he could admit that willy-nilly without any sense of shame or hesitation. The coward. That term truly reflects his words and actions. The past him will never look at Issei kindly. To be more harsh, it's insulting for the red dragon of domination to have this kind of weak host. Such thinking never passes through his mind. The only host who could challenge fear by laying everything bare to this partner who wants to ask his help for a better relationship. Heh. Contrary to your words, you are wearing a warrior's face. Drake will embrace his everything gladly. Chuckling shyly, Issei smiled slightly at his partner. For a 1,000-year-old dragon to say that was quite a compliment. He really was fortunate to have Drake as a partner. Then, let's do this. Not by myself but both of us. Together, let's be the Sekiryuite, Drake-san. Releasing a deep breath, Drake flaps his humongous wings in his mental landscape. With a grin that bares his sharp teeth openly, the sealed dragon loudly declares to his newest partner. Those words, why Drake Gotch certainly heard. The world will tremble hearing our names. For we are the red dragon of domination. End of the here. So that's it for today's video guys. Before you go, just like the video and share it with your friends. Bye.